please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The Nikkei is trading with some good gains this morning. In fact, it's up close to around 0.5% odd. Now it's up 0.7%.
Reliance Jio has announced its first ever postpaid plan called Hello Postpaid, which is priced at 199 rupees per month.
The late weakness in Bank Nifty, of course, was on account of weekly expiry. But I still believe that for a positional trader, Nifty IT offers a better risk reward than the Bank Nifty.
Starts with 10,745 to 50. And the Sensex starts 70 higher at 35,320.
So both from micro basis and macro, I do think that the market's going to be challenged for the rest of the year.
So in terms of revenue, I have absolutely no problems, even if it seemed to be a little lower than what was expected by the street.
The Berman and Honda family have Hero family have actually been awarded the bid. And
we'll be just shy of 20%. We'll be between about 18–19% or so.
It's about 100 points higher on the Sensex. The mid-cap index is seeing just a tad bit of an outperformance as we speak.
Strong day for the market, and there's been strong follow-through, perhaps on expected lines. The mid-caps have also recovered, but once again, the day has essentially belonged to the large caps. This is Closing Bell. I'm Anuj with Ms. Surabhi. Hi Surabhi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anuj. Isn't it looking a little more convincing to you today? I mean, it's been a steady uptrend. I know we're approaching this level again. You know, there's resistance that you mentioned about 10,780. But today, the constituents of the rally, I mean, it's a little more broad-based than what we were seeing yesterday.
You know, there are certain things which don't change in the market, Surabhi, and, you know, that's what, you know, I base my morning conviction on, that if you open around, say, this 10:30, 7:30, 7:40, perhaps that would be a gap up that you chase in this market with the stop of yesterday's low. The reason is very simple. Monday, you'll have exit polls. Anecdotally, whatever happens in the actual numbers is anyone's call. Exit polls do tend to favor the BJP, and there's a reason for that, you know, because you know, they do count the urban votes, and in general you do notice that that number is a bit bumped up in favor of the BJP. So that, I think, is something that the market would factor in, and you know, there's a good chance that, you know, Monday morning the market, when reacts to exit poll, perhaps will be reacting to what market perceives as a positive news. So let's see, the day to take out this 10,780-85 zone is today, if the market has to. If it sells off again in the last hour, so be it. But the way some of the stocks are rallying, you know, HDFC Bank, and if, you know, M&M, strong large cap stocks, you know, it's smacking as if, you know, of some large buying. And for me, you know, it looks like today could be that day when you finally take this bogey of 10,785,
84, 85.
Out. 785 was that level. Twice we've hit that. Once on the, I think, first Monday of this series, and once as recent as, I think, yesterday it was. So let's see. But looking good for the large cap for sure.
Oh, absolutely. We're 10 points away from that level, and it looks like there's some serious momentum building up. We've got 1 whole hour to go. Let's kickstart Closing Bell by telling you what's on the show today. The market has its eyes trained on the action from the south as Karnataka gets set to go into assembly elections over the weekend. CNN News 18's Bhupendra Chaube gets us all the on-ground action, and that's, of course, the big special focus on the show today. Consumer stocks are in focus after strong earnings from that sector. We get chatting with our alpha manager of the day, Rupesh Patel. He, incidentally, among other things, runs a very well-performing consumer fund at Tata Mutual Fund. That should be an interesting conversation. Pharma stocks are weak ahead of President Donald Trump's speech later tonight, which is expected to focus on the lowering of the price of prescription drugs. We track the fundamentals and the technicals on this space. And some of the earnings, SpiceJet as well as Westlife Development, both posting steady earnings. We'll discuss those numbers and, of course, get you a heads up of all the big earnings that are lined up over the weekend and Monday.
Okay, how should you position yourself in this last hour of trade? Then Ashwani Gujral and Mitesh Thakkar join us with closing strategies. Good afternoon. Ashwani, your thoughts first. Been a good day for the market today. Intraday, the gains have been building up. How would you approach the last hour and in terms of stocks?
Well, IT hasn't done much, but the Nifty is almost at that boundary. I think last hour, it's clear that people should get long on Bank Nifty. You could do even 100 here, because today, you know, PSU banks have also come back strongly. So now it's, you know, retail, corporate, PSU, everything firing. Plus, you have some of the NBFCs which have made a comeback. So today is a very strong financial day, other than a few consumer stocks and maybe a couple of pharma stocks, metal stocks. So basically, it's a financial day, and I would think that any covering that needs to be done will be done in the last hour or 50 minutes. So from here, I think we should be able to close around the highs of the day. So that remains the overall broad call. Individual stocks, HUL is a buy with a stop of 1480, target of 1540. Tata Steel is a buy with a stop of 600, target of 625. And HDFC is a buy with a stop of 1900, target of 1955.
Okay. By the way, just will make one point here. The Bank Nifty future was at a discount yesterday, big discount. That's now turned into a premium, and Nifty futures premium has inched up now quite a bit to almost 20 point on the Nifty future. That's the Bank Nifty. I think it was 70-80 point discount yesterday. It's almost bridged that, and the Nifty future, which was at par, is now 18 point premium.
Okay, yeah, banks looking good. Well, let's also bring in Mitesh into the conversation. Good afternoon, Mitesh. What is your reading on the indices? Would you advise any fresh trade? And of course, individual stock ideas.
Yeah, afternoon, Surabhi. I think very clearly the Nifty could be a good trading opportunity given the fact that we are now showing signs of sustaining beyond this 10,760, 780 zone. The key here, and I think you were mentioning this at the beginning of the show, that something feels good, and I think it's the breadth which is quite positive. Last few days when we were trading around this 10,760 mark, the mid-cap index and the overall breadth wasn't very supportive. Today, I think that the reverse is happening, so better chance of a breakout today. So I would suggest going long on the Nifty with a stop at about 10,745. And if we sustain, I think there's a good chance that we might head towards 10,890, 900 to begin with, and maybe even higher levels. So in that sense, I think the indices could be traded with a positive bias. On the stock side, I have two trading calls on the buy side. Oil India is a buy with a stop at 230 for targets of 246. While in the mid-cap side, Ramco Cement is giving good traction on the intraday chart. So buy that with a stop at 823 for targets of 870.
Okay, just pull out the charts of two stocks. One, of course, is Sun Pharma. That's really getting butchered now. 5.5% lower is what we have on Sun Pharma. And the other, of course, is Just Dial out of F&O ban. And since morning, there's been aggressive selling on this stock. So see that there's big build-up happening right now. I don't know. I mean, if you see the chart of that one, it's not looking too good. Ashwani, quick thoughts on these two stocks, Sun Pharma and Just Dial?
Pharma is a basket case, and now you have sentiment also turning in the US. I don't think there is much here, very low levels to get short. Just Dial is a basically sell on rally type stock. So anytime it rallies, you can sell into it. Both I don't think are going on the upside anytime soon.
Okay, by the way, talking of stocks losing ground, look at the kind of sudden reaction you're getting on a Graphite India, Rain Industries. And the more interesting one perhaps is Memphasis, which had good numbers. Stock was up almost 7% in the morning. And now there's profit taking that's underway on that counter. That's Rain. I mean, all of these stocks are suddenly moving lower. And of course, Memphasis as well. But let's now bring in Deepan Mehta into the conversation. Good afternoon, Deepan. Good to have you on Closing Bell as always. I'll get started with IT. I know it's not a space that you've been too convinced on, but some of the companies, for instance, Memphasis, the numbers look very good. The company has actually gone and improved. I mean, increased their margin guidance as well. Are you convinced at all?
No, not yet. I think, as I've been maintaining that IT companies can certainly have a good quarter, maybe even a good year or so. And they are coming in from a oversold territory, under-owned, and a bit of a surprise as far as the numbers are concerned, especially mid-cap IT. But then going forward, the visibility of earnings is just not there. And, one swallow does not mean there's a summer for the IT companies. And I think that the challenges still remain for them. They are facing immense competitive pressure, price erosion, volume erosion in their legacy businesses, and the new opportunities in digital. Indian IT companies are not exactly well placed to capture that opportunity, given that a lot of that opportunity is IP related, and therefore it goes to startups or US companies. So I think that the terrain remains extremely difficult for software companies, and you could have a trading bounce being extended for maybe one more quarter, on expectations that the good numbers of this quarter may get repeated next quarter. But at some point of time, IT companies will reach a wall, and that's the point that these companies will start underperforming. So I'm not positive on the medium to long-term prospects of software companies, and this opportunity is an opportunity to exit out of software companies if you are still stuck in them.
Deepan, hi, good afternoon. What about pharma? Sun is down 5.5%, Ajanta Pharma 3.5%. Granules, many days in a row now, we've been talking about this stock, just keeps making 52-week lows, almost a linear trend on that one. All these stocks seeing big declines right now. Your thoughts on how how to approach these names?
Well, I think investors who are still stuck in pharma are in an unfortunate situation, because the time to sell pharma was almost a year ago or so, when it was quite evident that it is getting fast commoditized, and the kind of price erosion which we have seen in the US market does not in any way compensate for the volume increases which pharma companies are able to get from new product introductions. And not just US, I think across the board there is pressure to reduce pharmaceutical product prices, be it in Europe, be it in India itself or Japan, and a lot of countries are going for tendering or somewhat similar to tendering type of businesses. And in any case, I think whether you buy molecules from Lupin or you buy from Ranbaxy, there is no qualitative difference. So there is no brand value, there is no IP, there is no technology involved in it. So therefore, the products have become commoditized, and in a commoditized situation, the kind of capacity that Indian pharma companies have put up, be it in getting new registrations or in actual manufacturing capacity, that is coming to bite the entire industry at this point of time. So I would say that, what happened in pharma, you could see a similar thing happening in, what happened in IT could be repeated in pharma maybe 2-3 quarters down the line, where base effect and marginal improvements in prices could lead to a rally or a trading bounce, and that could be the opportunity to exit. And that's of course the assumption that it may happen. If not, I think even at these levels, it's better to get out of pharma. There's a whole raging bull market in the financials, NBFCs, private sector banks, consumption-oriented themes, even commodities, where China was a big factor and the prices were being underpinned because of China factor, and now those companies also, be it steel, aluminium, engineering products, chemical products, across the board, I think we are seeing turnaround in prospects over there. So it's best that investors get out or have very little exposure to pharma and IT and look for many other sectors where there is good growth momentum and earnings visibility.
Deepan, I want to quickly run some of the numbers past you. So today's SpiceJet was far more inspiring than the shocker that we got from Interglobe. What are you doing with aviation stocks now?
I think we keep our faith in Interglobe Aviation at this point of time. No doubt SpiceJet has outperformed on financial parameters and stock price return as well. But I think there are minor headwinds as far as Indigo or Interglobe Aviation is concerned. And the kind of market share and the kind of volume and passenger growth which we are seeing, I think that this company can still deliver decent returns going forward. And do keep in mind that India as a country is investing much more in airport and infrastructure, which means that there will be further headroom for growth for the airline companies. And traveling by air is now becoming mainstream, and more middle class, even lower middle class are able to access airlines, which is great as far as the volumes are concerned for the airlines. And do keep in also mind that despite such high oil prices, these elevated levels of aviation stocks are being maintained. So if you imagine a situation where oil prices actually start to turn around and start declining, then that could be a big trigger point for aviation companies. So I would say no doubt SpiceJet has done well, and investors there should remain invested. But fresh investments are, I think, advised only in Interglobe Aviation, where we do feel that the uptick in growth and all the other quantitative and qualitative parameters will pick up, and some of the uncertainty around top management will get resolved in a quarter or two.
Okay, Deepan, what about telecom? This fresh, product from Jio, almost a death knell for Idea today, but 12% lower. Bharti is down 6-7%, and these are large companies.
I think investors need to be careful in terms of which sectors they are investing, and past track record certainly doesn't guarantee good returns. So while the past track record of Bharti and Idea has been great, see what situation they are in. And there were many analysts and experts in the telecom industry who were of the opinion that at some point of time the competitive intensity in the industry would come down, and that Reliance Jio will start pricing its products whereby everybody gets a decent return on investment, and that's just not happening. You need to keep in mind that at this point of time, the players in the industry are more focused on market share gain at any cost, because they know that's the way to survive in this industry where there's cutthroat competition and hardly any differentiation as far as service levels are concerned. So this, what Jio is doing, they'll keep on doing it because that's the game they know how to play, and that's going to impact the entire telecom sector. And it's great for the consumers, but it is, I think, very detrimental for minority shareholders. And we have seen in the past in other industries also, wherever there is no pricing discipline, then performance is going to suffer for a few years or so, and that certainly is going to impact the stock prices. So I think that maybe not today, but at some point of time, whenever there's a minor trading bounce, it's a good opportunity to exit out of all telecom companies. And even in Reliance, I think whatever analysts were building in as far as the value of Jio is, that also needs to be looked at, with further, whether actually that value will get realized and derived given the kind of strategies that they are following.
By the way, I just want to point out that after numbers, Rain Industries has really sold off. So if you get on the wrong side of these stocks, it can be pretty savage. 15% down on that stock. Numbers were okay, but probably the market was anticipating something even better. Just to quickly put it in context, there was margin expansion. The profit figure was substantially higher, 35% top line, but wasn't enough. The other stock, Anuj, I thought I'll get your view on maybe, is the way Westlife is selling off. When we talk about consumption, numbers seemed okay even for Westlife. Stock is now days low, down almost 5%.
Numbers were very good for Jubilant, and you saw what happened.
Exactly.
Look, on Rain Industries, the issue with commodity investing is when you invest in commodities, the issue is the exit has to be made at the peak earnings.
Exactly.
Okay. Now,
because if you exit when the cycle is turning, then you'll be crashed at the door.
Exactly. So when the numbers look the best, that's when you have to exit. Now, issue here is that when do you know is the peak earning? That is the million-dollar question. So what happens is in these cases, especially for those, Surabhi, Rain Industries started its rally from 40 rupees.
Oh, yes.
Then from 40 it went to say 320, 330. The normal instinct is to see these kind of numbers and say, okay, was that the peak? Let me do one thing. Let me just take my money off. And you take that money off. Even if later on you buy again, if you realize that okay, perhaps that was not the peak of the cycle. But when you know that you're so close to the peak of the cycle and you don't want to be holding this stock when the cycle turns. Look at what happened with sugar, for example. Now, how would you know that it was the 3 or 4 quarters back that was the peak earning? You saw how stocks like Dwarikesh, Balrampur after that completely sold off. You don't know. So that's the reason that commodity stocks in general, when you see the best earnings, normally they sell off because the assumption is that and since you're in a matured cycle, it's not as if you're in the middle of the cycle. You're in a matured cycle, so you don't want to take that risk, and that's why you say, okay, let me take my money off, and after that I'll take a fresh call.
Makes absolute sense what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, as we're speaking, it's 18% down. Bring a 1-year chart up, perhaps. 1 to 2 year chart will tell us the kind of gains this stock has made, the kind of wealth it's created. So, as Anuj is explaining, probably you want to just book in some of that and not be the last man to the exit door. All right, let's move to another sector that's in focus today. We're talking pharma. Here also, there's a lot of caution and quite a bit of pressure that stocks are witnessing. The important event that the market is anticipating and awaiting is President Donald Trump's speech, which is going to take place later tonight. Let's bring in Ekta to understand. Ekta, I mean, what's the word out there? I mean, are people generally anticipating some sort of commentary on generic drugs?
Well, let's see what happens in terms of the generic pricing. But yes, this is going to be Trump's first speech when it comes to drug prices after him, time and again mentioning drug prices over speeches as well as his presidential campaign. Now, in terms of the first thing that we're going to look out for is what he does with generic prices. Now, remember that generic prices have already tumbled significantly, around an average of 30% in the past 2 years. And a lot of companies such as Teva, Mylan, as well as Indian companies have been hurting when it comes to their US businesses. US FDA has ramped up the number of approvals that they have in terms of products, 1,027 just in the last year, and that kind of spate is expected to continue. So how much Trump does to batter down and beat down generic companies even further, Indian companies included with the US, that will be seen. But the other big thing that he's probably going to concentrate on is making sure that developed countries such as Europe as well as Canada and the others pay higher prices than they already are for prescription drugs and branded drugs which are manufactured by American companies and discovered within America. So that is probably going to be the tone of his speech. But again, you don't know how volatile Trump could be in his speech, because many of the Republicans, as per reports, are not even aware of what the agenda might be on this particular issue.
Okay, Ekta, thanks a lot for that. By the way, the stock to track now really is HDFC Bank. Just see this chart of that stock intraday and the kind of volumes that it's generating in last 5 or 10 minutes of trade. Now, this is really interesting because, you know, this is the largest bank that we're talking about, not some small stock. And from 1980 to 2005, from post-noon, it's been a big move on that stock. So intraday, quite a bit of buying. And that, of course, has meant that the bank nifty is now trading above the 26,300 mark. So 26,300 is here. The Nifty has broken that resistance of 10,785, or at least momentarily. So 10,787 is what we have. You know, the anecdotal evidence, Surabhi. That's the power of anecdotal evidence. Go and see most of the elections in India over the last 2 or 3 years, and you'll find that. Now, we don't know what, of course, will happen. But, you know, if you're reading the tape, I think the market's made its decision. And that is quite interesting.
I remember the verdict day on Gujarat. And I mean, let's just, I guess, for the sake of those who will be in the market, that level of volatility, perhaps hard to digest.
You know,
but
exactly. So, you know, look, there's no need. The actual numbers would come on Wednesday, right? Or Tuesday, I think. I mean, anyway, since we're talking about that, Karnataka elections, of course, it's really been a bit of a cliffhanger. CNN News 18's executive editor Bhupendra Chobe is now with us on the phone line. Bhupen, good afternoon. So, you know, the market's made its verdict, though I know we can't discuss that. But your thoughts on, you know, the kind of election it's been, it's turning out to be a bit of a cliffhanger, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that this Karnataka election has been pretty unlike what we have seen. There is a lot of talk in market circles in Bombay about how this election could actually be compared to what had happened in Gujarat. But I would actually take you back, and I would say that this election and the campaign that we have seen unfold in this election reminds me of the kind of campaign that we had seen in Bihar in 2015. It was a bitterly polarizing campaign. It was a bitterly divisive campaign. All kinds of comments were made. The BJP had said that if the BJP was to lose, then there will be crackers which will be fired in Pakistan. Sushil Modi then had said that there will be beef exports which will increase. And if the Congress was to win, if the Nitish Lalu combined was to win. And look at the kind of comments which have been made, the discourse which has taken place in this election season as well. Karnataka is supposed to be in the grip of a jihad, said Yogi Adityanath. The BJP president and prime minister themselves repeatedly never missed any opportunity to remind the people of Karnataka that there was something seriously wrong about the religious polarization avatar of the state of Karnataka. The million-dollar question now is that is Karnataka voting on the basis of these polarizing issues, or are people at the end of the day only and only concerned about basic Sadak Pani factors? To sum it up, let me say that while to analysts it may appear to be an election which is extremely high-pitched and high because of the campaign, but enthusiasm on the ground, as far as local voters is concerned, has been perhaps one of the dullest. Mr. Siddaramaiah nor Prime Minister Modi, they are neither the big heroes of the piece, nor are they the big villains of the piece. Perhaps Mr. Yediyurappa's choice as Chief Ministerial candidate was the only option that was left for the BJP, but for sure this election is not being fought purely in the name of Mr. Yediyurappa as far as the BJP is concerned.
Bhupendra, good afternoon. Good talking to you. You know, interestingly, in the past couple of elections, what we keep hearing from market people is that it's excitement for a couple of days and then the market simply moves on, irrespective of the verdict. This time, last couple of sessions, I've been hearing different commentary. I've heard from a couple of fund managers, for instance, that no, listen, Karnataka is far more important. Some actually went on to say that this is perhaps going to be a verdict on Modinomics itself ahead of 2019. Because there's a bit of everything in Karnataka. You're talking rural distress, you're talking urban issues, infrastructure, jobs. I don't know, would you concur with that view? Is Karnataka really a far more relevant election perhaps than what we've seen even in Gujarat?
Well, that's why I said, you know, that's one way perhaps to look at what's going on in Karnataka. Look, Karnataka is not just your BPO sector or startup sector, the CEO club in Bangalore. Karnataka is also parts of coastal Karnataka. Karnataka is also parts of rural Bangalore. Karnataka also has a lot of hubs and pockets which never get spoken about. So typically the market should be looking at the kind of investments which either come into a city like Bangalore, the IT capital of India, which was described as garbage city by the Prime Minister. All that, frankly, are not necessarily the key talking points in this battle for Karnataka. The key talking points in this battle for Karnataka is just this, that is Prime Minister Modi strong enough to be perhaps the only politician post Indira Gandhi to rise beyond the linguistic divide. Make no mistake about this, the sense of Kannada identity, Kannada pride, there is that element which is working on the minds of people in Karnataka. When I was traveling across different parts of the state, particularly in the rural parts, that's what I said. Whenever Prime Minister Modi campaigns in Hindi heartland, there is a direct emotional connect which he manages to create with the voters. But in Karnataka, it's very different. I think that language barrier has turned out to be a bit of an issue for the BJP, which is the main reason why, whether it's the Congress or the Bharatiya Janata Party, no party is really in record conversations feeling that much upbeat, that much confident. In Gujarat, the BJP was very clear. They knew that this is Modi territory. They knew that ultimately they'll be able to pull it off. In Karnataka, that's not necessarily the case.
All right, Bhupin, we leave it there. Thanks a lot for joining us today. I know you'll have a busy few days now ahead of you. 10,800 is now almost here on the Nifty, 10,795 to be precise. And really, the Bank Nifty has broken out, led, of course, by HDFC Bank. Just pull out that chart again, since the time we're talking about it. And actually, honestly, on the ticker, let's, put those instead of the other small stocks that we are flashing. It's really the big one, which has made a move, 2009 now on HDFC Bank, and Bank Nifty making a move. The Nifty also at 10,800 now. Ashwani, your thoughts on this last bit of move?
Well, market is gaining momentum. Probably the last bit of shorts are getting covered. But you don't want to take it to Monday because since you are getting that gain, it's best to take it off because on Monday, you can have sudden gap downs because the exit polls will be available before the markets open. And, you've been long enough in the market to know that, the best of pollsters fail.
Oh, yes, that's a fair point. But right now we have the market at the high point of the day. Sensex, Nifty, Nifty Bank, and of course the largest stocks are making a big move. By the way, just pull out the intraday chart of BEML as well. That I think is a bit of a play here on again Karnataka election and exit polls. That one also right now we're trying to inch up. The issue here is
the stake sale.
Stake sale. The cabinet had approved it, of course. After that, you had seen the rally towards 1,800, 2,000. And then, of course, it got stuck because the Karnataka government didn't approve it, and it needs the Karnataka government approval. So that's why you saw that correction in BEML. Now, if and that's a big if the BJP indeed wins, assembly elections, then that's at least one straight divestment that will go through. So that's, I think, the reason that you've seen this kind of move from the lows, this kind of rally in BEML.
And Anuj, I guess the reason why the market also got so excited was that this is not just any divestment where the government was willing to sell 10%, 15%.
Yes.
They were looking at 26%. The government holds 54%. So the nature, characteristic, ownership of this company changes, and perhaps that's something the market was taking a bet.
Which is what drives re-rating, of course, for companies. So obviously that's one reason. But Sandeep Wagle is also with us. Sandeep, good afternoon. What stocks are you trading?
Afternoon, Anuj. I would go with a buy in a Tata Steel, stop loss of 603, target of 630, and a sell in a Just Dial, stop loss 423, target 372.
372.